Good morning, everyone. My name is Tanner Caldwell, and today we have Klaus with the Car Guys.
How you doing, Tanner?
We're doing pretty good.
Terrific.
Yeah.
What are we going to talk about today, mate?
We're going to talk about electric cars.
I love electric cars.
Oh, do you?
No.
Not at all. Tell me more.
Tell you more.
Yeah.
I think that I'm going to voice an awful lot of opinion here, my opinion, and I'm sure there's some of our viewers that may or may not agree with my opinion, and you're very similar to me in that regard.
I have an appreciation for the classic things.
I do too. I think that, and again, in my opinion, people are being misled when it comes to electric cars. The environmental impact they have, are they really cost effective? Is this technology really ready for us? Is it being pushed on us? You know, and these are all questions that I have that I'm having a hard time saying this is something I want to do.
That last question speaks a lot.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. What are your thoughts, Tanner?
Well, personally, I don't know a lot about a lot of different companies. I know a decent enough about Tesla specifically to have an issue with that, and then that kind of leads to other electric cars in general. My gripes with Tesla are its own specific thing, but just in general, I'm kind of aware of some of the misinformation that goes around and the assumptions that go along with, like, oh, it's electric, therefore it's not gasoline, therefore better for the environment.
That's a dirty road you're
That's
going
what
down,
I'm
and I
saying.
mean that quite literally. If we think about what it takes to produce the batteries for these cars, we're talking about having to mine minerals,
Right.
lithium, copper, aluminum, cobalt,
Right.
manganese, and a plethora of other stuff that all goes into building these wonderful batteries.
So wonderful.
These wonderfully toxic batteries. These wonderfully toxic batteries that have a propensity of catching fire all on their own. And if we mix all this together, and we particularly look at the mining, you know, if you look at a lithium mine, for example, or you look at an aluminum mine, or you look at these kids in the Congo that are digging up cobalt by hand, which is a known carcinogen, I have a hard time looking at the electric car industry and saying, I'm okay with this.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I think a lot of people believe because they're driving an electric car that they're not producing any greenhouse gases,
Yeah.
that
Their
their
carbon
carbon
footprint.
footprint is somehow lesser than mine or yours or anybody else's.
Right.
And it couldn't be further from the truth. It just couldn't be.
Yeah.
I just don't think we're ready for it yet. And since you brought up Musk or Tesla, all right, even Elon Musk has come out and said there is not enough lithium to go around to make this work.
Right. And then, I don't know, by, 2030, we're supposed to only sell electric cars in Washington?
Not going to happen.
Yeah.
It can't happen. The simple reality of it is this: if you were to buy a Tesla today, or a Volt, or anything EV, there's a very real possibility that in 7 or 8 years, when you need the battery replacement for this car, you won't be able to buy one.
Tell me more about that.
Well, again, Tesla believes, or Musk believes, there's not an infinite supply of lithium.
Right.
There just isn't. There's only so much of it.
And it's so expensive. That's why the cars are super expensive.
It's expensive to mine, and it's dirty to mine.
And
you know,
it's
again, if
dangerous.
you look at a lithium mine, Sam, can you bring up the picture of that lithium mine that I sent you? You look at that, and I look at that, and I go, how many hundreds of millions of gallons of diesel fuel did it take to dig that?
Enough to fill the hole that they
Enough to
made.
fill the hole.
Yeah.
You know? And then you look at an aluminum mine, it's the same thing. You got diesel-powered vehicles that are not only transporting the ore, but also digging up the ore.
Right.
And now you have to add copper and manganese and all these other wonderful minerals.
And on top of that, I think this might be for gold. It might be for lithium, but like the purification process to get it to like a pure like lithium state, like sometimes you have to use like liquid mercury. That stuff is not good.
No, it's not
terrible
good.
for the
It's not good.
environment.
I've heard it said that in order to get 25 pounds of lithium, they have to go through 50 tons of ore.
And how many tons of
How many
diesel
tons
fuel?
of exactly?
Yeah.
You're right. So are these things clean? No, not really.
Not at all.
I mean, if you really do the research, they're really not clean. In fact, they're probably some of the most dirtiest forms of transportation on the bloody planet. That's simple reality. And then you have to look at, in my opinion, being a car guy and having been in the car industry as long as I have been, and it's longer than I care to admit. You look at the operating costs. There was recently, I wish I would have sent Sam this. There's a photograph going around the internet. I'm sure a lot of people have seen it, of an estimate to replace a battery in a Chevrolet Volt.
Okay.
So I looked at this estimate that's going around, right?
Right.
And it happens to have a vehicle identification number. And so I decoded the VIN, and the estimate states that the car has approximately 70,000 miles on it.
Right. And it's not a super new car either.
No, it's a 2012. The car ends up being a 2012
Right.
Volt, Chevrolet Volt.
And used cars around that kind of run like what?
Right.
$10,000-$12,000?
Yeah, so you got a car that's worth $14,000 if it's running. It was originally $46,000. But now you need a $29,000 battery. Are you going to put a $29,000 battery in your $14,000 car?
No way. By definition, that is a totaled car because the cost of repairs outweighs the cost of the car.
It exceeds the value of the car. Exactly right. Now, if we look at this in another direction, if we had purchased a gasoline-powered 2012 Ford, or I'm sorry, Chevrolet, or almost anything,
Right.
and it had 70,000 miles on it and were properly maintained, would you need to replace the engine?
Not even close. You'd have at least another 138,000 miles on it.
Possibly, right, if the car's maintained properly.
That's correct.
So is this cost effective? Is it cost effective for me to pay $46,000 for an electric car, drive it 10 years, and then have to invest another $30,000 into it?
Yeah.
The math just doesn't work.
It just.
There it is. There's the estimate.
Oh my.
$29,000.
That
Now
hurts my soul.
there's another problem with this that they don't discuss. Not only is the replacement of the battery costly, how are you going to dispose of this thing? It's toxic.
Can you recycle it?
No,
Man,
it's toxic.
there's a lot of assumptions in there that I have personally where, like, in my brain, I'm like, oh, maybe we could just recycle the battery, reuse it. Can't do that.
Can't be done.
You have to get another battery. So you're basically just going through the process of getting another car.
Right. Exactly right. And if you don't replace this $29,000 battery in your $14,000 car, what are you left with?
Just a toxic dead battery.
A nice planter. Sorry.
Yard art.
Yard art. Exactly right. Now you can buy a couple of horses and maybe be able to pull this thing with it. I'm thinking, right?
More horsepower than it has currently.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I just don't believe that enough people are thinking far enough ahead and truly understanding not only is the environment at risk because of what it takes to build these cars, but also your pocketbook is at risk later on because the car is truly not cost effective. Right.
Now, there's something cool that I have been keeping up on, kind of in the realm of, keeping our environment safer and then still combustion engines. Yamaha and I believe it's Honda came out with a hydrogen-powered car, a hydrogen engine, and it is so cool.
Yes.
It's a work of art from my perspective.
And actually, BMW came out with a hydrogen-powered car years ago. When Arnold Schwarzenegger was still governor of California, BMW gave him a hydrogen-powered car to drive.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's true. Now, the infrastructure for fueling the car wasn't in place.
Correct.
But the infrastructure for charging electric cars wasn't in place either up until just a few years ago.
Well, there's been a big push for it because it's
Sure.
like, oh, electric car, it's all green.
And I think one of the challenges that is not perhaps thought of enough is it really isn't the cars or transportation that is polluting our environment. Transportation, and I mean all transportation, including buses and trains and planes and ships and cars and motorcycles, really only make up for 16% of the world's greenhouse gases.
Right.
Industry, and believe it or not, agriculture, make up almost 80% of those greenhouse gases that we're concerned about. But the car is something that we see every day.
Right.
We can point at the car and say
You point
that's
at the exhaust, and you
yeah.
can see the smoke going in there, and you're
and
like,
that's our problem, and it's
what it is.
not. You can eliminate cars altogether, but you're still going to have the environmental impact from industry and agriculture, no matter what you do with the car.
Right.
No matter what you do. I don't know. I just don't see it as being a viable alternative yet. Maybe in the future, if we come up with something other than lithium, but I agree with you that hydrogen is most certainly the way to go. It's
yeah.
abundantly plentiful.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically free.
And there's like basically zero emissions. Like
There is no emissions. The only thing
Yeah.
that comes out of the tailpipe is water vapor. That's it.
which is beautiful. And I think my favorite thing is it's still a combustion engine. The only worry I have is how explosive hydrogen is compared to gasoline. So like we could have an issue with in just a regular car accident, instead of it being like, two people bump into each other and have smushed cans, it'll be like big explosions. It'll be 4th of July every so often.
Maybe.
I-5.
I think the technology is there to make it really, really safe. I mean, you've got natural gas, propane, or propane-powered cars that are running around with tanks. And I don't see that as being a challenge. I've never heard of one erupting. I've heard of a lot of electric cars starting on fire all by themselves.
Oh yeah,
right, and that's plentiful. Sam, there's a nice Tesla that's on fire. We love that, and that's happening more than we care to admit.
and just on its own.
On its own, it just simply catches fire.
You just hit a bump and then it just.
And apparently in accidents...
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Now that is a Jaguar I-Pace. The story behind this picture is that a gentleman in Florida bought this I-Pace from Jag. And he put it in his garage, and he was going to leave his garage and heard a pop and saw smoke from underneath the car. Wisely pulled the car out of the garage, backed it into his street where it popped a couple more times and erupted into flames.
Oh my gosh.
Are you going to put this car in your garage?
I'm not gonna own that car.
Now think about this. If you get enough electric cars into a parking structure and one catches fire,
And then it just spreads a little bit.
and you can't put them out with conventional firefighting techniques, you cannot put
Because
them
of the
out.
lithium.
It burns like magnesium. It just burns until it's finally gone.
Gotcha. Which is going to be a long time with that much. A whole parking structure? Are you kidding me?
And here's what's even worse. The fumes are toxic. It just gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And yet we have people that are going, oh my God, I'm not putting out any emissions, and therefore I'm being really good to the environment. And it's simply not true.
It's just so short-sighted.
It is absolutely short-sighted.
Right. Because they think, everything that I have has gotten to me in a healthy, green way, when that's just not the case.
Yeah.
Like, because we don't live where, like, industry is actually happening. We live in the urbanized area where we're just taking advantage of all of these systems that other people have created that we just pay money for.
Yeah. It's a scary thing, I think. And maybe long-term, maybe at some point, this becomes a viable way to power ourselves around the planet. I just don't think it's not time yet. I look at auctions in California, Nevada, and Arizona, because I buy cars, for my clients. I buy lease return cars. And I was going through the auction this morning, the docket this morning on an auction down in Southern California. There's almost 40 Teslas going through that auction today. And I mean, they had like no miles on them. Jeez. So people I don't know if people are acquiring these things and then eventually or very, very quickly finding out, oh my God, I can't drive to Seattle without a 7-hour drive, right?
If you didn't know that going
folks.
into it.
Yeah, think. Yeah.
And the other thing with Teslas, for me, I want something that's strong and sturdy. And from everything I've seen, like you sit down in the interior and you just kind of pull on the plastic bits just a little bit. Everything creaks, everything moves a little bit. The build quality is just not terrific.
Oh, come on, they're great cars for $8,000.
If you can find a Tesla for $8,000, I mean.
No, 80.
Oh, 80. Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
a new T or S is like $80,000.
Oh yeah, no, they're so expensive.
And now we've got these wonderful electric trucks. There was
the Rivian.
That. And even Ford came out with a new truck. Then they did a test. They did a towing test with this new thing.
Okay.
They put a boat behind it. Battery failed in an hour.
In an hour.
In an hour.
Oh my.
True story. Look it up on the internet. It's out there.
That's
right?
crazy.
So you got your family in your truck and in your new electric truck, and you got a full charge, and
Oh,
you
boy,
got
we're-
your boat behind you, and
We're
you're
going to the lake.
We're
It's
going
an
to
hour
the
and a
lake.
half.
No, it's not.
Didn't even make it there.
I just don't think that we're quite ready for electronic vehicles yet. I really, truly don't. I think we've put the cart before the horse.
Yeah,
But that's my opinion, and you know, it may be a little controversial, and I know there's a lot of people that like these things, and you know.
Yeah, and I mean, like, technology, if from when I was a kid, when the flip phone was the main form of telecommunications, versus now, I literally have my watch where I can call people.
You
or
have
my
dated.
phone.
You have dated me. When I was a kid, we actually got on a rotary phone, and it was somebody either answered, didn't answer, or was busy. That's all we got.
But do you see what I'm saying, though?
Yeah.
From, like, when you were a kid to now, like,
Yes.
technology has moved so fast in one lifetime that, like, a few more years, man, if we compare the iPhone 1 to what we have now, the iPhone 14 now, it's just crazy. Like, technology is moving so fast and being propelled forward.
Yeah.
Give it a few more years, and
Yeah.
it's very possible we'll be looking at electric cars being the future. But
And
for
again,
right now-
if the technology is there for it to work well,
Right.
and
Be
not
safe.
harm the environment in order to even produce the product, no, I won't. I'll still buy something that's gasoline powered. Right?
I think the big thing that bothers me is just the slander that they give towards, like, gas cars, where they have speakers in the back, like the new Mustang EV. They have speakers in the back that replicate the engine noise. So in, like, the year 2035, they'll have, like, yo, did you get the new sound pack?
I
for
did.
your
It's from the
car?
Jetsons. It goes right. There you go. I'm glad you showed. I got to meet you today for the first time.
Correct.
I like the fact that you're a sharp kid who is obviously on the right side of the aisle.
Trying.
There you go. And I mean that. Yeah. I'm very pleased to see this in our younger generation. I really, truly am.
There's a
There's
lot
not
of
many
younger
of you.
generation,
You know, there's a lot of you out there that you're going to start a revolution, but my God, you can't start a lawnmower. You know, so, it's nice to see a young man of your age with the intellect that you have,
I appreciate it.
and it's comforting. It really, truly is.
Yeah, I only have the intellect from 11 a.m. to, like, 2 p.m., and after that, I'm just catatonic.
I know. As soon as I'm out of coffee, I'm done.
You're exactly what I'm saying.
Thanks for being on the show today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for being here. This has been The Car Guys.
The Car Guy.